Otherwise, it would be like the boxer exiting the ring because he took some punches. Take a second and really let that image sink in. When we think about ancient philosophy, we usually picture, marble statues, quiet libraries, maybe some peaceful contemplation. We definitely don't picture a bloody, bruised fighter taking a massive hit to the jaw. But that is exactly where we're starting today. We're setting aside all those beautiful, neat theories because, as the former slave and Stoic philosopher Epictetus knew all too well, life isn't an abstraction. It's a gritty, visceral, and honestly, sometimes brutal fight.
Welcome to This Explainer. Today, our goal is to completely dismantle the illusion that wisdom is just some intellectual exercise you get to do from the safety of the sidelines. We're drawing on a totally fascinating collection of source material to prove that wisdom is actually a real practical technology for living. As F.J.J. Bidendijk pointed out, human beings are kind of split creatures. We're caught right between our high-minded spiritual aspirations and our very grounded earthy reality. You literally cannot just think your way through a punch. The ring is the only classroom.
Okay, let's dive into this. First up, the boxer who stays. Then, what the calendar reveals. Next, doing before knowing. And finally, the urgency of today.
Section 1. The boxer who stays poised.
The world is going to throw things at you, for sure. And the very first test of any philosophy is whether it actually keeps you on your feet. The ancient Greeks and Romans practiced something called pankration. It was this intense, early form of mixed martial arts. And for Stoics like Epictetus and Seneca, this boxing metaphor wasn't just, decorative language. It was woven into the very fabric of manhood. The fighter wasn't just some athlete, he was a moral exemplar. Seneca actually argued that a person who's been in a constant feud with misfortunes acquires a skin calloused by suffering. And that callousing, it's not an accident, it's the whole point. A real fighter fights all the way down to the ground and just never gives up. Because really, what kind of person leaves just because the going gets hard? Simply put, someone who was never really in it to begin with.
Now, this kind of perseverance becomes absolutely crucial when we face a much subtler enemy, which is the internal perfectionism we so often weaponize against ourselves. In his novel East of Eden, John Steinbeck offers this profoundly liberating insight through one of his characters. He says, "Now that you don't have to be perfect, you can be good." We constantly set these impossibly high standards, right? And when we inevitably fall short, what do? We abandon the fight entirely. But the goal isn't a flawless record. The goal is just to still be standing. Good is infinitely better than perfect, because good is real, it's human.
Author Tim Ferriss perfectly captures the danger of letting our internal failures fester. He writes, "A vessel that holds acid is damaged more than anything it pours acid upon." Think about that. If you become a vessel of sustained self-criticism and complaint, all that damage just accumulates inside of you. You're basically defeating yourself before the outside world even gets a chance to. So, the fighter really has to resist two temptations here: fleeing when punched from the outside, and corroding from the inside when the punches are entirely self-inflicted.
Section 2. What the calendar reveals.
Does your stated value actually match your daily schedule? Well, this brilliantly illustrates the gap between what we say and what we do. Take Marcus Aurelius. Not as the perfect, untouchable Stoic exemplar, but actually as a bit of a cautionary tale. He deeply, deeply loved his wife, Faustina. He wrote these beautiful sentiments about how he would rather be exiled with her than rule an entire empire without her. Sounds incredibly romantic, right? But if we look at the reality of his days, we see a striking contradiction.
Just look at this timeline. A year with extended stays in Greece. 5 years of endless cases to adjudicate and dignitaries to receive. 10 whole years away at war. The empire completely swallowed his life. Now, to be fair, he didn't ask to be emperor, but the reality still remains. Whatever his private longings were, he was elsewhere while the years just passed him by. And honestly, this raises a pretty uncomfortable question for all of us. How often do we say our family or our relationships come first, but then we organize our actual days around something else entirely? The calendar doesn't lie. It is completely indifferent to your self-conception. It only records what you actually did.
This kind of brutal honesty bridges perfectly across completely different eras of thought. The ancient playwright Menander playfully subverted that famous phrase, "know thyself," by suggesting it's actually better to know other people because true self-knowledge requires understanding your actual impact on the people around you. Bruce Lee demanded action, famously saying, "Knowing is not enough, we must apply. Willing is not enough, we must do." And modern management thinker Peter Drucker brought this right down to earth, insisting that without real action, meaning actual targets and policies, philosophy is just furniture. If it isn't on your calendar, it's just a dream.
Section 3. Doing before knowing.
If action is the only thing that really matters, then we kind of have to rethink how we learn to be good in the first place. As preserved in Leo Tolstoy's Calendar of Wisdom, Harriet Martineau makes this radical, totally startling claim. She says, "Nobody has any idea about what goodness is until they start doing it." Goodness isn't like geometry. You can't just memorize the formulas and then go out and apply them perfectly. John Ruskin echoed this too, saying that just talking about goodness is actually part of the problem. Treating morality as some sort of intellectual debate is really just another clever way of keeping yourself safely outside of the ring. You literally have to get in there and start doing it.
Maya Angelou perfectly completes this specific arc with her beautiful distinction between stars and hearts. The desire to reach for the stars is ambitious, she says. The desire to reach hearts is wise. Stars are abstract, right? They represent our distant achievements, our grand legacies. But hearts? Hearts are right in front of us. They're specific, they're present, and they require genuine, messy human contact. All of this wisdom demands that we shift away from abstract ambitions and move toward concrete, specific acts for the actual people standing right in front of us today.
So the crucial point is how all these layers stack together to create a tightening demand on how we actually live our lives. We have the theme of perseverance, staying in the ring and releasing perfection. We have the theme of honesty, aligning our actual daily calendar with our stated values. And we have the theme of goodness, moving away from abstract stars and aiming for present hearts. These aren't just parallel ideas, they're more like concentric rings, pulling us closer and closer to the core reality of our everyday lives.
Section 4. The urgency of today.
Now, all of this mapping and philosophizing, it's really just pleasant, interesting wisdom unless something actually forces it into the present tense. To do that, the Stoics relied on something called memento mori. This is the practice of steadily holding in your mind the undeniable fact that you could leave life right now, and letting that thought determine what you do, say, and think. It's absolutely vital to understand this isn't meant to be morbid. Not at all. It is meant to be ultimate clarification.
Let's actually test that clarification right now with a quick thought exercise from Marcus Aurelius. Think about a minor annoyance that completely ruins your mood. You know, that traffic jam that just enrages you. Would you honestly prefer it to death? What about the internet troll attacking your reputation in the comments? Would you prefer their words to the utter silence of the grave? When you frame it exactly like that, the absurdity of letting small, petty things pull us out of the ring becomes glaringly obvious.
Author Rich Cohen recalls his father having a highly complimentary formulation for this, which he called taking the long view. Step 1. Care but not too much. Just remain slightly detached. Step 2. Look at the thing that's consuming you and recognize it as a mere blip on the massive radar screen of eternity. When you combine memento mori with this long view, you get this amazing double compression. Your anxieties shrink because they're cosmically small, but your focus sharpens immensely because this present moment is literally all you have. What survives that double compression is a profound, incredible freedom to focus exactly on what needs doing right now.
And to do that work, we have to keep our vision clear. Buddhist teacher Pema Chödrön offers an insight here that the Stoics would have deeply, deeply respected. She says, without anger, there is no enemy. Think about it. When hatred consumes us, we suddenly perceive enemies absolutely everywhere. But the fighter who survives in the ring must be able to actually see the ring. Anger just clouds your vision, multiplies your opponents in your own mind, and exhausts you before the real work even begins. That callous skin Seneca talked about earlier? It's not a hardened, unfeeling heart. It's the ability to remain present, clear-eyed, and responsive without being blinded by rage.
Which brings us to how we actually embody this today, beautifully illustrated by two very modern observations. On one hand, we have Chip Conley's concept of the mentern, a mentor who is also an intern. This is someone who is wise but remains a deeply curious seeker, never pretending they have it all figured out. On the other hand, journalist Jessica Bruder observed nomadic Americans living in vans on the economic margins. She noted that people can struggle intensely and yet remain upbeat simultaneously. These nomads are out there actively taking punches, yet they cheerfully remain in the ring. It is the real lived verification of 25 centuries of philosophy.
Which leaves us with our ultimate thesis. You know, you can read every book, you can quote every philosopher, and you can fill countless notebooks with profound thoughts.
but 25 centuries of wisdom all converge on this single, inescapable call to action. Do something today. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't need all your contradictions completely resolved. Just do something for someone with your whole attention. The ring is the only classroom we get. The day is the only day. You could leave life right now. So, my question to you is, what are you going to do with the time you still have left in the ring?